Hey, very good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome back. So, our last session, we were discussing about how do we have how do you deal with some Linux commands, right? So, especially the kill command, and after that, you have sudo we were dealing with, like to have the privilege escalation. And after that, we talked about a DNF package management. And after that, we went with system CTL. So we have understood, how to create the services and all, right? So we're going to continue with the uh, next things. So before going there, I just would like to start. So I went with EC2 and I'm going to first launch an instance because every day I'm terminating the instance because it's just unnecessary cost for me. So that's why I'm just terminating it. Okay. So here browse AMIs, DevOps hyphen practice. Okay. So proceed without a keypad and launch instance. I think this is the same behavior I have observed with other students as well. Like someone reaching us saying, "Okay, hey, we are creating a server, but we are not getting a public IP address." So this is something. Mine is also a new account now. So something is fishy. Okay, with Amazon approach, not fishy. I would say they might have changed the approach. So let me just go to the uh, VPC. Let me look into this. So why it is happening? Why are they doing that way? So because the IPs are chargeable nowadays, they change certain things. So, or maybe in my case also, it was created by control tower. Okay, that's the reason. All right. So if any one of you face such issue, let me terminate my machine once. I don't want this machine. But I need to evaluate, by the way, my accounts is bit different. Okay, so I deal with multi accounts and this is being provisioned by some automation, okay, from Amazon, by the way. And okay, anyhow, we'll talk about that a bit later. Okay, so I use something called as a control tower, Amazon landing zone. Okay, what is this landing zone and all? I'll anyhow try to explain it when we talk about the multi environment of a project. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so that time you will get bit more clarity. So I will just delete this. So if I go to the VPC, I clean up all my VPC. If any one of you face this issue, I seen yesterday one student. I was hoping I was also into that. So I just create a default VPC. This should be fine. So a proper Amazon VPC. Now I'll go back to EC2 and launch an instance. This may be just a coincidence happened, but let's see. And I'll go for proceed without a keypad, launch instance. Yeah, now I'm getting the public IP. So that means it's just a coincidence. So yesterday, maybe whoever happened. their account issue. Maybe account was what? Okay, all right. So you get one public IP address, and we are going to take this and connect to that. Okay. So let's give it a minute to come up. Yet to come. In the meantime, let's go with the killer coda. Yeah.
I want to say really quickly, I have not. I'm not signed up for the account. The thing we're supposed to actually pay for. I'm not signed up yet. So I want to say that I'm sorry. I said I should probably get that started now, because I've been doing the other labs and stuff like that. I've been playing with virtual machines, which is in what you shared. But yeah.
All right. All right. So here is the one. So I logged in. Now, what is the thing that we're going to talk about here is the next one is user management. What is user management is in an operating system. Okay, so we are going to run applications, and those applications should be running through some sort of a user, by the way. Okay, yesterday also a mild discussion came onto this particular thing, by the way. So what is that we are actually, or why is that we need this one is we need our servers to run our applications, because you go back and remember, like, why are we doing this, by the way. So our roles and responsibilities, we have an environment and our application is there, and some customers will access our application, correct? The customers are accessing our application now. So these we are going to run the web application. So these application is going to be a process in the system, right? So it's a process. When you start a service, by the way, it becomes a process, PS-EF something, if you see. Now these processes need to run as a normal user rather than running as a root user for security best practices. Okay. Now, if you're running as a root user, so then what will happen? So if some reason, like, so some guy gained the access to that particular process, however the way, now he'll have the access to the whole system because the process is running with a normal user, sorry, root user. But whereas if you run it as a normal user, so the blast radius is going to be a bit less, okay, when we talk about on the security aspect, by the way. So in order to run our applications as a normal user, so ideally we need to add one user on the system, and that's how we are coming here and adding a user. But this user is not a normal user. No one logs into this particular system using this user. No one will do that. You should be logging into the system with your user, and from there, okay, you'll be having a privilege to manage the system, and you will be running the application with this user, by the way. You don't run your application also with your user, because tomorrow you leave the organization, okay, your account will get deactivated in the centralized place. So that means all these systems, which wherever it is going on, like your logging in and all become inactive, by the way. So that's where your process becomes impacted. Okay, so we should not be doing that. So that's where we should be knowing about creating a user on the system. Some organizations, even this common user also, they'll take it to the centralized only, single sign-on, but they'll not have login to anyone. So there'll be some owners, by the way. There is a service accounts can be created. Not a normal user. There'll be a, you can call it as a service account. There is certain name, by the way, in the Active Directory. Uh, I don't really remember, but it is not for a human being, by the way. It is only for the process. Non-functional user, you can call it a very technical word. In general, lot of people talk. Lot of people talk is not a non-functional. It's a functional user. Okay, this user is not uh, the regular user, by the way. This is just a functional user. Okay. So that means for running some functions and all, which is like doing some job and all. So we are using this user. Okay. So sometimes it can be created on the central. Our company will say that no, every account sitting on the central, okay, is a burden, is a I mean, it comes with a license and all these particular things. So at least the application users, you take it on the system. So you will be doing on the system. Okay. Just assume like, we are doing on the system side, only the application users part. But whereas the user which you are logging in, the EC2 user is still the centralized user. Assume, okay, a single sign-on. EC2 user is you, but not a EC2 user. When you tell to someone that how are you logging into your machine, you will always say that I am logging with my single sign-on. From there, I'll be having a privileges on the systems, and I'll use those particular privileges and manages the systems well. And also while managing the applications, uh, to run that particular applications, we're going to create a local users on the operating system. But we don't go with setting up the passwords, all those particular things. Like we'll not do that. It's only running for our functional purpose. It's a functional user. And let's talk about how to create a user. Very simple, by the way, user add, that's it. Okay, so user add, okay, let's say sample. Now what it is telling, permission denied, because a normal user can't add the users to the system. A sudo would help you. Now the user is created. You can check it out, ID space sample. Okay, so this is how it is. So that is what um, I wanted to show on the user section. By the way. Now using this user, like yesterday also some discussion happening, your system D, okay, later in the project, by the way, if I want to add a new service, I'll add the service. And I know I know the context now that, so I need to run this as that application user, a functional user. I'll create one user and I'll tell to my system D, always run this application with that particular user. Okay, so this is how we are going to deal with it. Okay, and this is a very important point. We don't run the applications as a root user, nor even with our user. By the way, it always runs with a separate user. Okay, so that's what it is. And also, I mean, this is necessarily not needed, but just some script to deal with it. So I just wanted to show you is if I install some process, some standard process. So for an example, sudo dnf install nginx, let's say MariaDB -server. The one well-known applications I'm using, these are all MariaDB. So MariaDB -server, I'm thinking. So if you install some famous softwares like this, you will understand that those are not actually running with a normal user. So when you install this particular package, what will happen? Whatever is the vendor is defined, that job will do, right? Now that guy will try to create a user on the system. Now if I quickly log into this particular system on another window, so if I try to show you, there won't be users like, okay, so ID space nginx, this user doesn't exist. MySQL, this user doesn't exist. But after installing the packages, you will see that, that user is being created. Now, who creates that user? The package manager will try to install that particular one. So let's see that. Now the same thing, ID space MySQL, you can see that MySQL came out. ID space Nginx, you can see that Nginx came. Now, why this came in? Because you're installing the software. That software vendor is a very standard vendor. Okay. And he follows very pretty much standards on operating system that when I start my process, I should not run it as a root user. I should always run it as a normal user. So he clearly follows the standards of the industry. And he is trying to create a user so that you start these particular services. So those will run with that particular appropriate user. That was the idea. So for this reason, we also need to follow the same standards. Whenever we wanted to create whenever we wanted to go ahead and create a uh, application on the system, by the way, or run the application on the system, so we'll be needing to add a user, and that's where the user add section came into picture, and the command is user add. Yeah. Any questions before proceeding? And also one more just small thing. Uh, Linux administration user management may be big one. Okay, so generally a big one as well. Like so but however, okay, so we are actually doing an engineering job, not the administrative job of the Linux, by the way. So there is a user add, group add, password setting, password expiry, all those things, blah blah blah. Many things are there. So we're not interested in that. So my interest of Linux is running an application, and what is necessary, we are going through that. Okay, so that's where there's always other things which is out there. Okay, which is we're not looking into that dimension of that. Yeah. Any questions, please, bro?
Hello, Raghu.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the users that you just showed, like MySQL and Nginx, are these functional users or non-functional users?
These are functional users only, right? So for running the function of MySQL database, MySQL has been installed. That's so they're functional only.
Okay.
Those it's not like login users.
Okay. And can a human use those accounts? Can we log in to system using MySQL or Nginx, or is that not
No,
allowed?
no login for functional accounts. If everyone is
Oh,
logging with functional account, you and me using the same username password to log into the system, if something is wrong, how can I track it?
okay.
So it's not possible. So functional users, no logins. Any other questions?
Hi, Raghu. So this functional users have pseudo privileges by default.
It should not give pseudo privileges for functional user. Otherwise, the whole point is lost, right? We're talking about security of the application. And again, you go back and give pseudo, there is no point at all. So we don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So because you see, this is also needed. Why? Because if any process in the operating system need to associate with certain user, by the way. So that's the only reason we need a user. If Linux is not designed that way, right? Then no question of this problem coming into.
Okay. I mean, my doubt is actually if any application needs to run, so it's need pseudo privileges, right? So
No, never needed.
okay, okay, yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm having an issue because I had I was using this on Mac a few days ago when I started, but then my Mac had an issue, so I'm using a Chrome.
Any questions related to, hold on, any questions related to the topic, please go ahead. Otherwise, keep to the
No,
end of the session.
okay, but yeah, okay, I'll keep it to the end of the session. Thank you.
So which attribute we can look at to see whether the user is a functional or non-functional? So let's say if I have list of user in the system, which attribute of the user will tell that it is a functional user?
There won't be any attributes, just an understanding only. MySQL is not a, like, let's say as an example, MySQL is not a human being name. By that way, you'll understand. Just an understanding only.
Yeah, but you said the functional user IDs are, we are not able to log in using those IDs.
Yes, as long as you didn't set any password, right? Now you didn't set any password to this particular user. No one can log in. And this is a local user. It's very pretty much clear, right? So for an example, if I'm having a central user, by the way, and that, but I mean, you need to understand this user is a central user or a local user. So how do you identify that is, maybe you can refer all the passwords here. So here password, if you see, So these users are being added here. Okay. Now you can understand, okay, these are local users and functional users. And whereas any user like your single sign-on users will never be here. So in from that dimension, you can understand whether that is a local user or central user. The local user means we created for functional purpose, and you can consider that as a function.
Okay, so wherever we see no login, that means it is a functional.
May not be. So for my normal user also, I can set up no login also. That's not the, that is one way of interpretation, by the way. Okay. Just to disable no login also, we give a no login. That doesn't mean that, that becomes a functional user. You can't say that, right? Now, let's say I can have a Hitesh user created, but I have given non-login. But Hitesh is still a person, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's where I didn't told that from that particular dimension. So just try to understand your central users, human being users always come from single sign-on. So you will understand that is a single sign-on user, which is a human being. And whereas the local users which are created is functional users. All these users are just created for functional purpose on different users in the system.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, yeah, like, so just even if that particular dimension is something, I mean, we also wanted to achieve that, like, let's set it as no login. I mean, if your team SOP is something like has been defined as, okay, all the users who are no login is functional user, let's say. Okay, then probably you can deal with that. Or else there are multiple ways, like since the point came in. So now I'll just go for user add. So there are different options out there. So in user add, I can add some description about that. So rather than just plainly creating a user, so we'll just try to add some information about the user while we add it. So how can I add that the context comment is there, right? So user add hyphen C, so demo functional user and null user, okay, and then demo, by the way, right? So now cat/etc password, you will see the information as demo function. So by this way, you can also understand it. Or else, like let's say, as I mentioned, so you want to set this particular one as no login, then you consider all those as functional users. Then probably you can also set that shell is there. So you can go ahead and tell that way as well. It's all like, as I mentioned, it's an understanding in that particular team only. The moment you go to other project and other teams, they may be thinking in the different way. So that's where let's understand at the core uh, kind of a thing. So central single sign-on users, whoever is logging into the system is the normal users, and whereas local users, let's keep it as functional. This is widely used approach, by the way, most of the organization. Yeah, if you want to set to no login, you can set where is this option? Shell should be there somewhere. So this to set to no log. So that way it can be able to, you can also understand that is a no login if everyone agreed on your team to get that. That is one dimension you can, yeah. Right.
I think Raghu, you answered my question because I was curious if we can create a functional user, and I think you created one demo. So we can also create a functional user if we need to, right?
No, we already created a sample user. This is my functional user only. So that's what I'm telling. It's an understanding. When you are in the project, by the way, you generally have the context, right? You don't blindly do the things. Generally, we'll have context. So from the context only, you have to build and relate the things.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to unmute and talk money. Moving on.
Raghu,
Yeah. Yeah.
that Nginx service is running under Nginx user. Just a funny doubt. If I While
That's
running the
okay.
service, while running the service, if I delete the user, whatever login, will the service get terminated, or it's still running under some other user like root or something?
Yeah. So when you actually start the services, everything goes into the memory, by the way. Okay. So that's where it will not impact any of that. So the process will still run.
Okay.
Yeah. It loads everything into the memory, then only it will run. So that means the running process will not have any impact. So yeah,
Next time when reboot happens,
that's
uh,
when you stop and start the service, things might not happen. Yeah. So that is my general understanding of the operating system. So let me just try to do that. Okay. So let me try to go with systemctl start NGI and NGI NX. Okay, I started my Nginx. So that means I can go ahead and give call, just give localhost. Localhost means I'm just trying to access the web service from my local system only. I'm getting a response. Sudo user del njnx. So you're not able to remove it itself, by the way. So it is telling you can't delete it because there is a process associated with that. So it clarifies out. Even I was in a different impression. Yeah. Or this is a maturity, by the way. I think, very long back, I would say that this was not that much matured. Or at least when I seen this scenario, by the way, I felt why I answered is because I had some context that you should be able to still do that. Or even like, let's say user del, I'll go for force removal. Till it is not happening now, then it is good on. So force is also not happening, right? Now even further, I'll do the force. So vi/etc password. Here is my Nginx is gone after force. Nginx is currently used by the process, but still it happened. Now ID space Nginx is not there. Now curl localhost, is it having any impact? No impact. Like I mentioned, it still runs on the memory only.
Good morning, Raghu. I have to know what is the difference between Nginx job and admin job. I didn't. Can you brief about that?
Any questions related to the user ad, please go ahead. Otherwise, keep your questions to end of the talk.
Okay, sir.
All right. I don't see any more hands. Moving on. So the next one, which we're going to talk about, is a permission management, by the way. What is a permission management is? Every file that you're going to create is going to get owned by a certain user or a certain group, by the way. Okay. For an example, if I create touch sample.txt, if I give now ls-l, automatically it has created ec2-user with ec2-user. Now, if you would like to transfer this information to some other people, okay, then okay, you can transfer them, by the way. Okay, so that user is the owner it will become. Now, to demonstrate this, I will also go for sudo. There is a group add command also is there. You can add a group also. Group add, let's say DevOps I'm adding. Okay. So now I would like to change the ownership of this particular file to some other user. I created a demo user. So sudo chown, change the ownership to a file which is called as sample.txt. Okay, what ownership whom I want to transfer? It's a demo I want to transfer. You can see this. Now you'll see that this file is owned by the which user? Demo user. Okay. So this is how it is. And the next one is if I want to transfer this ownership to the DevOps group rather than the EC2 user group, so then sudo chgrp change the group for whom sample.txt to which group DevOps. Now ls-l, you can see that it belongs to the demo user and DevOps group. All right. So this is how you can transfer the ownership from one user to another user. Owner and group ownership and group ownership. And now let's say if you want to change both the things at the same time, also it is possible. The HOWN command has the flexibility to change the ownership and group ownership at the same time. Okay, so you can give like, for an example, ec2-user colon ec2-user, which is sample.txt, and this file has been brought back to EC2 user. So the same way, however, we have changed to demo and the DevOps group. So that also I can give demo colon DevOps. Okay, then this is what you have. So the demo and DevOps. Okay, so this is what it is about the ownership and group ownership. Now transferring the ownership to these particular users, what will be the impact by the way, right? What they can do by the way. So that is the left-hand side section is going to help us. Okay. The first character determines what type of file it is in Linux, and whereas the next remaining 9 characters determine what they can do on the system. Okay. Now this is being taken like this. Now let's cut into pieces. So this is one piece. This is one piece, and this is another piece. So this is the existing configuration or existing permissions, but the full permissions will be RWX, X. So this is the full permissions, and R stands for if R is notating there, someone can read it. Okay, so that is the permission. So that means R stands for reading. W, someone can, whoever is the owner or what he can do is, so he can write it. X means execute. So these are the 3 permissions which is coming into picture, RWX. Okay, execute. Now, who are these? Why 3? I mean, 3 RWXs is coming into picture. So why not 1? Because on the file, you're already saying who is the first guy? Owner. Now, what owner can do is this first one. Okay, so the first one tells is what owner can do. And the second one is what the group can do. Okay. Not only single user and single group, there is a lot of users in the system and a lot of groups in the system. Okay, what others can do. Oh, okay. All right. So this is what it is. So now what it is notating here is now demo user can read and write on this file, whereas a DevOps group only can read the file. And whereas other than DevOps group, so those guys can read this file. Now, if you want to give permissions for them to read or don't read it, okay. So then how do I do that is by changing the permissions. Okay. So then for this, we have a command called as chmod. Okay. chmod. Okay. So chmod is the command. Okay. So now the permissions you want to provide, which is UGO, U stands for user, G stands for group, O stands for others. And you want to provide the permissions by the way. So you will get either plus or minus. You can give plus means adding the permission, minus means removing the permission. And finally, what all the things you can do is RWX. Okay. And finally the file name. So this is how the command relation coming into picture. Okay. So chmod ugo plus or minus, you need to provide the permission here. And what permissions? RWX and the file name. Okay. With this way, you can able to manage the permission. So for an example, so sudo chmod ugo plus RWX of sample.txt. That means for a user group other, everyone I have provided the full permissions for that. So which is read, write, execute plus. So ls-l, if you see, you can see this RWX, RWX, RWX. Whereas for user group and everyone, I removed the whole permissions minus, okay, ls-l. If you see, it is no permissions. Now that means if I try to cat this file, I'm a EC2 user. This file belongs to demo group, demo user and DevOps group. I'm not part of anything and I'll get a permission denied. Okay. So now if I wanted to get others permission, so then sudo chmod. So O plus R, that means everyone, by the way, can read that file, ls-l. So now you can see this. So now cat sample.txt, there's no content, but I'm not getting error. Okay, so this is how you change the ownership and you change the permissions for the owners and others as well. Okay, this is how you can do. Yeah, let's make, is that clear? Any questions?
So how can we set for specific user or specific group?
Specific user?
Yeah, so for example, there is a Nginx user. So I want to give the user name Nginx a read permission on the sample.txt.
Yeah. So Linux by default, you don't have that option. So you have to enable some ACLs and that turns only it is possible. Access control list. But yeah, that scenarios which usually would not come into picture. Not able to hear.
So I didn't understand. So for example, let's say Nginx is a user who I want to give permission on the sample.txt and we are not able to do it. You said.
No, let me then repeat the thing what I understood from your word, by the way. So you have told, or my understanding was, there is already a demo and DevOps group, by the way. And are you asking, apart from these users, you want to give some other users also some specific permission? Is that something my understanding?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. It's not possible, and that scenarios won't come into picture at all in the systems of our world, at least.
Okay. Okay. How
Yeah.
about multiple groups? Can I give permission to, there is another group called DevOps 1 and there is a group
My
called DevOps.
answer is to multiple only, right? So then I am not under, I mean, we're not talking the same thing then. So here this demo user can read, write, execute, and DevOps group is can read, write, execute. Is this clear for you, right?
Yeah, that's clear.
And that means the previous question which you asked is extending this not only to demo user, I want to give a specific access to specific user is the same question you asked, correct?
Right.
So which is the same answer. By default, it is not possible. And
Okay.
groups also the same answer applies.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but you have a concept. Okay, you can still do that. But you don't, it won't come under your, I mean, your world, by the way. So generally, because why I do need that? Why there is a multiple groups in the system in the very first place? I'm running a single application only on the server. So the multiple groups won't come into picture at all for the same application. So which is never the worry at all. Correct? Yeah.
Right.
So now why I'm talking about this, because I run my application my application requires certain permissions on the files because it read and write some files on the operating system, right? The disk is there. It does some IO part on the system, and that means it needs the permission. So the application is now one application only will deal with that files, right? I don't expect that multiple applications dealing with the same file. It doesn't go that way, by the way. So that's not a design that people will do. So
Okay.
in our world, by the way, so that scenarios wouldn't come into picture at all.
Okay, got it. So this is like kind of use cases for application, but not like files and folder
Our
as a
job,
storage.
all we're talking about is our job only. There are 100 different roles, does 1,000 different things. I can't go on to everything. So that's what I mentioned clearly, the context starting, right? So Linux is a vast concept, by the way. You start learning the next 20 years also, you wouldn't end up, by the way, learning Linux. It continues, okay? But you can't go that way, right? So you, some way, like, you have to do your job only. It's an operating system. Like Windows also, you don't know everything. There's a n number of possible things are there. We don't need everything. What our job is to purpose is we have to take care of that much. And clearly we're doing everything from the context of running application, my roles and responsibilities only. I'll not go beyond this. Knowing is fine, but as a role perspective, I don't do all this.
Nope.
Hello, Raghu. So when you created the sample file, it was created under the EC2 user. So EC2 user was the owner. And I think then you transferred the ownership to demo, and then you transferred ownership to a DevOps group. So is it possible for us to transfer the ownership just to a group so that no owner, I mean, not a single, if we want a single user doesn't have the ownership of a file?
Yeah, we did that, right? So here, sudo chgrp. So we just transfer the only to the group, right?
Yeah. No, but if you see in the line below, when you did the LSL, so the demo user and the DevOps groups, they both have the ownership.
No, because previous I already changed the ownership to demo. Okay. So that time only demo changed. It was easy to group, user group. Now, like, let's say you don't want to transfer the user, you don't execute this command first, only own group ownership, right? So this command will do the job.
Okay.
Now let's say this file is there. So DevOps group is there. Only I wanted to change it. So grp. Now let's say I wanted to transfer only these two EC2-user group and sample.txt without touching the file permission. I mean, owner, by the way, you can do that.
And since DevOps is a group, is it possible to add users to a group so that if somebody
Yeah.
new one comes into the team, they also have the permissions to access it?
That's what I mentioned. So those users addition and all will not happen on the Linux box. It is single sign-on. So somewhere in the Active Directory group, it will be added.
Okay.
It's not local. So here local user I'm adding is only for the application purpose only. Yeah. But otherwise, if you want to still deal with the Linux box, it is there. 100% options are there. But we don't do that way. Right? So when company comes into picture, it's process all the time. So let's talk about that context. Yeah, and also why you are not actually, so why I'm strictly not looking at the other dimensions is, by the way, is the ROI prospect. Okay, return on investment. Now you're investing your time and effort on something you learn, by the way. What is the return on investment? I know you're very curious. I want to know all these options. Look at the return on when you will start using it or when you get the return of it. Okay, it won't be. That's what I'm telling. So don't look, especially the Linux part. Now, let's say you spend 2 hours understanding the group concept or user concept. By the way, okay, now the ROI is very, very less when you compare the same 2 hours you spend it on some trending tool that is happening in the market. Okay, so that ROI is much more better than the Linux effort. And that's where I'm calling it out. Okay, so options are always there, but process wise, let's understand what is the process and we'll do according to the process and we'll move on. Everything will be there.
Understood.
So don't waste time like me by learning a lot of Linux. No use. I'm telling you, I came from, a quite Linux background. It's been, 16 years back, what I had the experience of Linux, you will never have it also. There is no point in having also. Okay. Because if I look back, by the way, there's a significant amount of time I wasted by investing on Linux. Okay. So, somehow I would have, used that particular time something better, by the way. Then maybe today it would be something better also. Like anyhow, it's for me at least, it's already okay only. But still, I'm just look back, by the way. If I do the retrospective of my learning perspective, something which I would have done something better, by the way. Right. So that's how it was. I was just telling. Okay, that's fine. But whatever is needed, let's not compromise on that. But whatever is not needed, let's not look into that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So you're executing Linux commands, right? So where is the place actually these commands are reflected? Like you have created sample.txt. So where is the text file? And you change that demo dev. So where this and all reflected? Uh,
In the operating system, right? So in the OS.
is it possible to show that?
No, your question is like hypothetical in my understanding. By the way, what is your question? By the way?
Like
When you change something, it's changed on the OS.
yeah, in Windows, if we create any text file now, we can have a look at physical look, right? Like if we create notepad.
ls is there, na?
Uh-huh.
ls command is showing, right? So this is a file.
Physically, where we can see that, like
It's not physically. Are you seeing your file? By the way, it's a virtual one only, right? In Windows, on the screen, you're seeing. Can you? That means physically means you can touch the file.
no, we physically means we can't touch like there is a symbol like notepad symbol,
Yeah,
fold.
here also it is there, right?
Hmm?
Here also it is there, right? It's a sample.txt is a file, and the first character hyphen is telling it is a file.
Mhm.
And if you have some directories, ls hyphen l of slash, okay, you see some d. These are all directories. So here also it is showing the same thing. So since both are different operating system, you can't that fancy icon things won't be there here. It's not a graphical operating system. The command line operating system. Even in command line operating system, also Windows also, by the way. So now let's say ms dos prompt. Okay, you go here and view dir command to see the list of files, and you will also see the same thing. So there is no difference will come into picture. Like let's say no ls. So it's here ls alternative, there you have a dir command. It will also show you like this only there only.
Okay.
So this information is graphically represented that way. That doesn't mean that graphically is changing something. This is anyhow at the core Windows also it is the same only. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anyone? Any other?
When we saw the first command like ls minus l, it is the user is showing easy to user and the group also showing easy to user. That means when OS created easy to user, the group is automatically created with the same name or just a simple layout like.
So whenever I create any file, this ID will show me that what user, what group I belong to. I am a EC2 user. I belong to EC2 user group, by the way. So that means anytime I create any file, okay, automatically that user and group will be fetched in, and those permissions will be assigned automatically. Okay. Now let's say if I go and try to change myself, by the way, to a DevOps group, just as an example. Okay. So now ID is showing me that, oh, where is that? The primary group I can't modify. User mod -g, but it did not give any error. or it just comes into an effect only if I relog. Let me try. So if I try to move to any group, by the way, I just need to exit and come back. Okay, I belong to this one. So now touch space new one.txt, something like that. Now I belong to primarily to DevOps group. So I get the file automatically got created to EC2 user DevOps. And even the other files also has been changed, by the way, or at least this old file also has been changed, because it should not ideally, but I think it's just representing, it's just the relations.
Just 10 minutes back, we created one user, like user and some demo kind of thing. Just curious, which group it belongs to?
It's actually a standalone group. There is some name, by the way, so which is self-referencing group. Any time you try to add a user, okay, so let's say I'm adding Raghu. So then automatically first there is a Raghu group created, and the user Raghu will be added to the Raghu group only. So that is the operating system behavior.
Okay.
And we wanted
your
that
group
way.
is created.
Yeah. There is some word, actually I don't remember. We call it as, it's basically like the same user representing to the same group. There's a technical word for this. That's how the OS.
And my group, if my Raghu group, I can add some other users also.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So the next one is, I think here it will come to the end of Linux admin things. There is some more thing which is called as network aspect, by the way, and disk aspect. There are two things ideally. Okay, I'll try to explain disk aspect. Okay, here it is not there. I'll try to explain the disk aspect. At least you need to know the information about what is there. All right. Now, in an operating system, by the way, so if you go back to the good old days, okay, so here, I mean, let's try to visualize how the hardware will be. Okay, so now your laptop, or maybe some people would have seen some desktop also. So desktop, if you look in, okay, if you open the desktop chassis, okay, it will be like this. So images, if you go in, so this will be a desktop chassis, and inside this, what you're going to do, you're going to keep a bunch of hard disks, or maybe a single hard disk, single motherboard, or single processor, all those particular things, right? And at the same time, you can also keep multiple hard disks also, you can make it, okay? Or maybe desktops usually will have single hard disks. Okay, so like this, or else you can have multiple hard disks like this also, you can keep it. Now, but when you look at the server, by the way, so desktop, we're clear, right? There is one hard disk physical. Now, if I go with the desktop, not desktop, so server chassis, if you look in, okay, so servers are actually will be there in where? Data center. Okay, so first the data center. Now this is a data center. Now in data centers, okay, you can see that there are certain racks, by the way, so which we called as a technically a rack only. Okay, like in house you keep your rack. This is the rack. It's called as racks. Okay, rack, server rack. Okay, simple server rack. And in the rack, by the way, so they'll certain dimensions are always universal. I mean, across the globe, everyone makes the same dimensions of the rack, and servers also is made same dimensions, by the way. But whereas there is a something, there's a technical word for this actually, or not technical word, general word only, Englishish, but there is some sort of some what we call panel, something like that is there. Okay, but anyhow, what we will do here is, so here we are going to insert the servers here. Okay, how we insert the servers, and rack server tasks. Okay, So now you see this guy, actually, this is not a server actually. This is a blade, by the way. This is a different thing. Server, someone inserting, this guy is doing it. So what he will do is he'll try to make the server, okay, and he's trying to push the server. Now this radius of this particular is some word, actually we call it up. Now the height, if you see it, is very small one. Okay, rack server. But if you see this height of this server is a big servers, by the way. So big power servers and all, okay, like this. Now you see this comes with a lot of hard disks. Now why I came all the way here is I wanted to show you that, so hard disk will be there. Task is I'll go for a hard disk. Okay, so now this is how the hard disks will be there. Okay, which is the right example is anyone trying to remove it? Yeah, this is how. So you have this big server, rack server. Okay, but inside that there is one hard disk, by the way. Now this is a server. Okay, and it has many hard disks, by the way, because to store the data and all we require it. Now, how do you deal with multi-disk, by the way? For an operating system, you need only single disk, right? If you get multiple disks, by the way, it is a challenge. So that's where in the physical layer, what will happen here is is this. Okay, you have a hardware. This has a lot of, let's say, disks. Now in the hardware, so there's a hardware controller will be there, and that controller is called as a RAID controller. Okay, RAID controller. This will control the hard disks. Okay, and based on the controller configuration, you can get many disks. Let's assume we get one big disk. So that means, so here I am having, let's say 5 into 300 GB hard disks. I'm having, okay, 5 into or 6, let's make it 6 into 300 GB hard disk I have in my hardware. My RAID controller configuration. So what I'm going to tell is, so it depends upon the RAID. RAID becomes, if anyone is interested, please go ahead and read. These all physical world concepts, by the way. Now RAID calculator, if I go for now, the RAID calculation, RAID is all about high availability of the data. I want the high available data. Now let's say even 6 disks, one disk is lost also, I should not lose any data. So that's where the RAID controller will come into picture and do the data distribution between all the all the disks, and you will ensure even one disk fail or two disks fail, you don't get any kind of failures. Okay, so that's where the RAID calculator comes into picture. Now if I try to calculate the RAID, there are different RAID numbers are there, and over here the number of disks is actually going to be, let's say, 6 disks, and each single disk is 300 GB. Okay, so now if I try to go with the RAID, okay, this one RAID 0, I get total 1800, by the way. So now 1800 is 6 into 300, which is 1800 only, right? 6 into 300, which is becoming 800. Or the capacity is total this one. Is there any other number been coming? No, right? Okay. Now let's say if I go for RAID 1 mirroring, by the way. So RAID 0 means it is just stripping. That means all distributing to all the hard disks, by the way. It's just doing that. Okay, even that mean that particular case, you lose the data, you lose the data. One hard disk you lose. So now let's say I go with a mirroring, and if I go with the calculate, it will just come only 300 TB only is usable. Okay, even the tolerance is, even the 5 disk is a failure, you still get the data out of 6. Okay, even 1, but whereas RAID 0, if you see this, the tolerance is none. That means one disk you lost the data. Now that's where, so depends upon the requirement, by the way. So the people will come. So out of that, RAID 6 is widely used. So this has a parity to 2 disk failure in the worst case. Okay, RAID 5 will have 1, RAID 6 will have 2 disk failures. So that means the controller, if someone configure RAID 6, even the 2 disks is a failure, you still get the data, but the usable data is only going to get 1200 TB. So that's where, so here what you're going to get is 1200 GB hard disk is what you get it here. Okay, using this particular one, you're going to make an operating system. So for OS, it is going to be, okay, 1200 GB single hard disk. Okay, it is a single hard disk, single it made. Okay, for OS, it is going to be one single disk, one disk with, okay, so 1200 GB. Now, if in my system, by the way, if I wanted to check how many disks I have, then what is a command? Okay, so sudo fdisk -l, or actually fdisk might show you a little bit more information. Let's look at another command, sudo ls blk ls blocks. Okay, it is showing you that there is one hard disk, by the way, xvda, and that one single hard disk has been made into 4 partitions. Okay, and one partition has been having a more logical volumes, by the way. Okay, I'll come to that concept. Now you can see that it's a single hard disk, which is 20 GB only. This is a virtual machine, because here we'll try to create some virtual machines and we'll cut down the pieces and we'll provide. Okay, but let's not go there. Just let's understand it's an operating system. Doesn't matter whether it's a physical or virtual. We wanted to see what is the hard disk. So LSBLK is going to show you pretty much clearly. One hard disk it is showing. Now, what is the next thing is, now if you just take one disk, by the way, in operating system, there may be having a different, what we say, requirements. Okay, you'll have different requirements. Maybe I want to store this somewhere, that somewhere. Generally, you create folders and all, right? So hard disk also we wanted to create. Now let's say C drive, D drive, E drive. Okay, like that, multiple partitions we used. I mean, we wanted to use it. I think people, maybe the old guys, you might have, whoever has used the old Windows operating systems would have had this experience. C drive OS, D drive movies, E drive songs. Okay, so some drive personal, like that we used to create multiple. Okay, so here also it is the same thing, like, so if you want to organize it, yes, it is possible. Then that's where we are going to convert this particular disk into a particular logical pieces, by the way. So that's where LV will come into picture. So we'll start creating a LV for our requirement. Okay. Now these LVs has been created in our operating system also. We had LVs created. Now why these LVs came into picture? Why don't we use single disk? Why not? Yes. Okay. And even the images which people will show you generally, right? And you will have the LVs coming into picture. Okay. Sorry, no LVs coming into picture. Okay. That means, like, I mean, so you try to launch just the, like, let's say Amazon Linux here itself. Okay. So then ideally you will not get any logical volumes created. Okay. Because that's a bare minimum operating system. So when you install an operating system with a specific defaults, okay, so there is nothing comes as a standard, by the way. But we are actually operating servers, and we are actually running a serious business inside those machines. Now, for me, at any point of time, I should not lose anything. That's a pretty basic expectation from anywhere. So that is the reason. Okay, so we need to go with some standards, by the way. Okay, now you take some basic operating systems, by the way. I mean, operating system with some basic setup, it will not be the right approach for our organization. Now, if you ask me, what is the changes that you have you made to your operating, to your image, by the way. Okay, so the RHL9 image which I am giving. So what is the recipe we added in that particular one is called as CIS. Okay, CIS benchmark. Okay, so let's go and ask ChatGPT something. Okay, he can provide. Like, if you are looking for description, I think what is this? CIS benchmark. So CIS benchmark is the best practices and guidelines designed to help the organizations to improve their cyber security posture. Okay, these benchmarks. Okay, CIS benchmark for RHEL. What is it? Okay, the same thing, and it is basically designed for operating system, because the CS benchmark provide many things, by the way, and it is basically like, so what all the it provides a comprehensive checklist of best practices to secure RHL installations, covering what is the file permissions you set up, user accounts you need to set it up, okay, network configuration, logging, auditing, all these particular things. How do you do that? There's a big document will come into picture. Okay, I think I downloaded yesterday or sometime only one thing. Mhm. It can be downloadable. I don't know. That's okay. Like it can be downloaded. RHEL, yes, benchmark, download. You just give your details, by the way, you'll be able to do that. Or else let's try to look for a PDF version if anyone has kept it directly. Is there anywhere PDF? Here is a PDF. So you can, but this is a very old one, huh? Something Red Hat Linux 5 it is, but doesn't matter. So it's going to be, it's a very old one. Download. So like this. So they will give you, okay, comprehensive list of things that you need to perform and why, what is the reason, okay, and all you're going to get it. So now what is that? There is a difference in our images basically is our image, what we are using is a CIS compliant, by the way. Inside this particular one, there is a section for, okay, how do you maintain your disks, by the way, okay. And that particular thing is actually added in the core of it. Okay, so that's the only difference which would come into picture. For an example, if I try to connect to this system, and so this is Amazon Linux, I just picked it up. I am not sure if I'll be able to connect. Yeah, all right. So sudo lsblk, it is showing me that, so just a disk and a partition. Okay, anyhow, partition is mandatory, so just made it. But otherwise, it doesn't have any logical partitions. So which is not a CS compliant image. It is not a CIS compliant image. So we don't run the things like this. Okay. So please take excuse on doing like this, by the way. So in organizations, you'll not do that. So CIS benchmarking is a must and should, and you will scan the machines, we'll ensure that there are no vulnerabilities. We have to do a lot of patching and all those particular things we have to do. Anyhow, we'll talk about that security related scanning of the machines and all later. Okay. But yeah, so this is how organizations will run. So here, according to the CIS, by the way, so they'll tell you to, okay, split it into multiple pieces, by the way. Now, root directory is a separate thing, and there is a swap, there's a home directory, there's a var, temp, okay, logical volume, and some audit volume. All this being splitted, by the way, according to the designation, according to the design from these guys, like, so CIS. This is a CIS compliant image. And that's how you get all these particular things. If you read that CIS benchmark for RHL 9 also, you will see these all always, they will try to write it in the documentation. Their documentation suggests you to create these many things. Okay. Now, if I wanted to know that, so actually now who is the usable thing here? Now we are actually using these particular things. Okay. Now these usable things, now the next thing is I wanted to look at is if I wanted to know that, so each disk, each partition is of what size, you're already seeing the size here. But sometimes you need to think about, what is the usable size of these. So df-h will help you, or df itself will help you, but df will give you in the blocks, by the way. So if you give ls-h, you remember, df-h if you give, so it is going to show you what is the total size, what is the used, what is the available. Okay. So we'll be getting into a scenario of, so exhausting the disk space, and we need to add it a little bit more to the servers and all. When we actually get into the project, it becomes dirty, by the way, right? So problems will come, and we have to solve those particular problems anyhow. So later we'll talk about that. So, but at this point of time, my interest is I want you to, okay, look at and fdisk, not fdisk I told, right? So lsblk, and also df-h. These commands will help you with the disk related information. And again, a question can come into picture, which is, how to create these logical volumes and things like that. Okay, so as a standard, I'm telling, okay, these should be there, but I'm not teaching you how to create them. I know the gap, by the way. I'll provide one video. I don't want to take it into the main line because it's a once in a while job kind of thing, right? So, but I'll provide you that information going forward. So you just take and understand. It's very simple only. Just hardly 2-3 commands. You do it and you get the things done. Okay, it's only about understanding. End of the day, why we are doing that, what we are going to achieve, and things like that. Okay, so as simple as that. So I'll provide you that information. So don't worry on that. So, but at this point of time, so this is what DFF you will understand what all the things. So that's something I wanted to talk on the disk aspect, by the way. Now there is something called as network aspect. I think network aspect needs some time, by the way. So because you need some clear understanding on the flow of the network and how cloud is dealing with that. Okay. So now to understand the cloud, first of all, you need to understand your home setup. I'll try to start from home setup. Okay. I'll explain you in your home, how are you doing the networking? Now, if it is a small company, how they will do the thing. Is a cloud, by the way, how that guy is doing. We'll try to relate that. And for an OS of what it means, by the way. So we'll try to understand that. And we'll try to access some services, by the way, okay, which is running in the server from my laptop. Okay, how do you do that? So that takes little time. So at least 70% of one session completely I needed for networking concept. So which is next session. Okay, after 2 days, we're going to meet again. And during that time, I'll start the networking. Otherwise, I'm good for today. I'm just going to update this. Any questions in the meantime? Go ahead.
So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, but here's one problem. You said until the end of the session I can say this, but my my new laptop, it doesn't support the systems, and for Putty, for example, I can't download it because it's saying that Chrome doesn't accept it. So the operating system isn't compatible with that software. I tried to find a way to bypass that, but it wasn't working.
Chrome has a terminal, right?
Yeah,
Inbuilt
it does have
terminal.
a trouble, but even when I try to set up the terminal, it also has a problem because it says right here when I say set up, it doesn't allow me. It's what it says is Linux development environment. Linux is not supported on your Chromebook. So I tried to fix.
No, I don't understand. Sorry. Please give proper information to me to understand. You're using a Chromebook, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Chromebook has an inbuilt terminal, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm open. It's open. It's open. I'm telling you, it's open right now on my screen. I just opened it, and it's saying,
One thing at a time. Please hold. I know your hurry. You have a terminal in the Chromebook, right?
Yes.
So that means can you open the terminal and can you execute ls command? Is that working?
It's not. No.
It's not working. SSH command, is that work? Please just have some patience. I'll explain you, please. Just SSH command and just follow my instructions and I'll help you.
Yes.
Just type SSH command. Is it working?
No.
Okay, it's not there. So what is the error it is telling?
It's saying that, but it's saying right now, it's just saying that it won't work.
Won't work.
No, it won't work.
Now, what is it? See, there's a command prompt. Means is the command prompt something looking like this in your MacBook? I mean, sorry, Chromebook. Something like
this. No, it doesn't
this.
look like that.
Okay. So then you can go with this one. So I'll tell you a solution. You find out your ways, by the way. But until then, so there are 2 ways you can do. Chrome browser at least works, I hope, right?
Yes.
So on the browser, you have a Chrome SSH SSH client extensions. Okay. So you have a secure shell Chrome extensions is possible. Okay. You can directly do it on your Chrome. Open a tab and you can do that. That is one thing. or you don't want to do that also. So on the right hand on the right hand side top of your Amazon account, you'll find out a cloud shell here. A shell icon is displayed here. Okay. So if you
Okay.
use that, you'll get a Linux environment there. So you can just click on that. You'll get a window over here from Amazon. So either if you want, you can use that also. So same thing. I'll just copy the IP address and you give the
I
same
think
thing. SSH EC2-user at the rate this one, and S same thing, DevOps 321, and you get the thing. And you
hold
can
on.
open multiple tabs as well. You can use either of these options as per your choice.
Okay, so the Amazon EC2, somewhere on there it says that there's a place that I can activate this cloud shell you're saying?
In the Amazon console on the right hand side type top, by the way, you will see this icon, cloud shell icon.
Yes.
There you get a Linux prompt. You can use that also.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll use that.
Yeah.
Raghu?
Yeah.
Yes. So, do we get a recording from the lab or no?
No, lab doesn't make sense because 99% of the time it's ideal only. Having it recording of noise.
Okay, because I'm not able to do the lab because I'm working
No, it's
in the morning.
no. You're misunderstood that, by the way. Lab is anyhow you have to do on your own. That lab session
Oh,
is
okay.
basically, we named it as a session. When you are doing a lab, you have a question, you join the session and ask a question. That's it. It's not that you join
Okay.
there and okay. So there
Okay.
everyone will come from previous batches, general discussions, everything will have. It's
Okay.
a query session, not a lab session. Query session.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone? Any other questions?
Raghu, is that lab session available during the weekends as well, or is it only
Yeah.
5 days?
No, it is 7 days.
Okay, thank you.
You need to unmute and talk. Vishnu.
Raghu, so DF hyphen K, DF hyphen heads, correct? So
Correct.
disk space name almost 80% it is full. Then what we can do? Who will clean up that space only?
We'll see. In the project, anyhow, we'll get the requirements of filling the spaces. We'll talk about.
Okay.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm running the application on my server, right? So I'm the owner of the server. Ideally, we have to deal. Yeah.
Yeah, in my project we have recipe last time. That's what I'm in real time.
Yeah. Whoever is the owner of the server should be taking care of it. So since we are the owner, so when the requirement comes in, we'll take it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone? Any other question? And also one last announcement from my side, by the way, is you will be onboarded to the actual portal of the training, by the way. I know some of you are maybe already using it as a free kind of a thing, but that's okay. So everyone will be onboarded to the portal. So during the weekends, please ensure you check with the organizers and get yourself onboarded, by the way, because from next session, it is going to be a closed session. Right now, maybe you're freely opening the things, by the way, which is bit open like Zoom or whatever it is. It's going to be closed. Only if you have access only, you'll be able to access the sessions or access the recordings, by the way. So please do check with your organizers for getting yourself onboarded to the training. And who is your organizer is, whoever is sending you the details of to attend this training, is that the guy. Not able to hear you, Shrikant. Check your mic settings. If no questions, feel free to drop. Maybe we have still a couple of more minutes. Anyone, any additional questions also, please feel free to go ahead. No problem.
I heard that there was an early morning like Q&A. Is that true for me, or is that just
Yeah, it is.
Okay, what time is that?
Yeah, it's mentioned here. So it is 3:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay,
They did not
nice. So
mention.
I can do that then as well. How, and is that you? Oh, that's you, of course, right?
First level, there will be another person or couple of persons. If they couldn't able to answer, they'll pull me. But ultimately, your question will get answered.
Okay, all right then. Then from 3:30 to 11:30, I can pop in any time to do that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear. It's a good class so far.
You mentioned about onboarding and the portal. So
Yeah.
which portal are we
You'll
talking
get an
about?
email. You'll get an email. No worries.
Okay, so the link that we are accessing right now is called demo. So from next week, it will not be called as
Yeah.
demo. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Cool. If all good, we can meet in next session. And anything during the weekend, so please come by on the lab session. The team will be there. I'll also try to be there for some time continuously. But anyhow, if your question is not answered, anyhow, they have the rights to pull me. They'll directly pull me into the call. No worries on that.
Good morning. Next session would be on Monday, right?
If you're in India, it is Monday. If you're in US, it is going to be Sunday.
Okay, okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So see you in next session. Bye. Good day. Good night. Good week.